love the cold. I don't. I hate cold weather. I really do not like it at all. When the temperature drops below freezing, you know, the kind of weather that bare skin gets frostbitten in under 5 minutes in, I turn into a big whiner because I'm just not adapted to handle cold temperatures. But you know who is really, really good at handling the cold? Bacteria. True story. Bacteria over millions and billions of years have adapted to thrive in some of the coldest environments on Earth. I'm talking about places like Antarctica, the bottom of the ocean, and even in permanently frozen ground in Alaska called permafrost. These organisms have evolved to thrive in temperatures down to minus 20 degrees Celsius. These cold-loving organisms are called psychrophiles, and how they can adapt to live in these cold environments helps us understand the universe as astrobiologists. I'm going to talk about 2 ways they do it. The first way is, you know, when it gets cold, water can freeze into ice, and bacteria have lots of water inside of them. As we learned earlier today, we're 60 to 70% water, and so when that water freezes, it can expand, and that can be bad for the bacteria. So these organisms can create antifreeze proteins, just like we put in our cars. Those antifreeze proteins lock onto water molecules and prevent them from crystallizing into ice, thus making sure the bacteria does not explode when the water freezes. Also, normally at about room temperatures, the bacteria have a cellular membrane that's nice and fluid, kind of like this piece of paper. It allows for nutrients to go in and out of it. However, when temperatures start to get cold, that paper becomes more and more rigid, and eventually the bacteria can die because they can't get nutrients. So what microbes can do is actually produce different kind of molecules to go in their outer membrane that keep it nice and fluid, even at minus 20 degrees C. This is important to us as astrobiologists because most of the bodies in our solar system don't have liquid water. They're frozen worlds. And so by looking at how microbes in Earth can adapt to these cold, harsh environments, like Alaska, we can much better figure out how they could potentially survive in places like comets and Europa. And so I want you to remember this. You know, when you go outside today and you're a little cold and a little shivering, I want you to remember that even though you're cold, these bacteria thrive in temperatures 20 to 30 degrees colder than it is out there right now.
Judges.
Well, I thought you did a great job over there. I liked your stage presence and your body language and your facial expressions to, you know, when you were asking questions. All of that kind of stuff was excellent. You started off with brr, and I'm from Alaska. So it was, you started off with a nonverbal thing, which was interesting to begin with, and personalized it from where you're from Alaska and you hate the cold. But so made us think about, do I like the cold, do I like it warm? So there was a lot of stuff. I wrote, compared yourself to bacteria, but that's not exactly what I meant. But you did make the comparison between humans and bacteria to constantly bring it back to something very concrete. The other things that I liked about it were, you told the importance of what this had to do. It wasn't just a curiosity of, hey, this is cool, there's some bacteria over here, but why, as an astrobiologist, that was important to study. You gave clear reason for doing that, gave strategies and nice analogies with the paper. And even at the end, when you brought it back to Alaska and outer space things, had a call to action. So next time when you're out there, think about this. So I really thought that you did an excellent job.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought that I love the personal start. It's totally relatable, and then the turn to astrobiology was just very organic in the discussion, and you stuck with it in a very good, real, connective way. And your delivery, I thought, had great energy. I thought, if anything, you might be a little bit too theatrical, just a touch. But overall, excellent job.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I liked that you're very dramatic, you know, on the sort of continuum of just giving a talk versus giving a performance. You know, you're definitely on the more performance side, and yet you were very present as a speaker, and it's a good combination. There was one moment, and it's a very small thing, but when you said, as we learned earlier today, that cells are 60 to 70% water, it showed that it wasn't just completely a rehearsed performance, that you've been listening and thinking, and that you were responding to other things, and that made it feel like, okay, she's being dramatic, and yet she's still, it's in the present, giving a talk. And so yeah, very, very good job.
Thank you, guys. Oh, no thanks. I'm going to spend the next 3 minutes convincing each and every one of you why water is awesome and why it's important. So I know what you're thinking. Really, Liz? Water is the most important molecule on the surface of Earth? More important than DNA or RNA or caffeine or chocolate? Yes, it is more important than all of those molecules. And you know why? Because we wouldn't exist without it. I wouldn't be up here standing if it weren't for water. We're 60 to 70% water, and all life on the surface of Earth has evolved so that water is fundamental to every cellular process we do. It is what lets us breathe, it's what lets us walk, and it's what lets us eat the chocolate that we enjoy. Now, you're probably wondering what the secret to water's awesomeness is, and it lies within its structure. So a water molecule is H2O. You guys have probably heard that. It's an oxygen bonded to 2 hydrogens. Let me show you. So let's say, for example, I'm an oxygen molecule. Bonded to my oxygen, 2 hydrogen molecules. They're connected at about a 100-degree angle. And these atoms are all connected, and there's a sea of electrons swirling around them. The oxygen, kind of like my tummy, is larger than my hands, and it's constantly hungry. So these electrons are going to spend more time circling around my tummy than they are around my hands. That's going to make my stomach a little bit more negative than these hydrogens. Or this oxygen is a little electronegative. The hydrogens then, by comparison, are positive. Come on, front row, let's see your waters. So we have positive and negative. That discrepancy of charges is called polarity, and that is why water is so awesome. Polarity is what lets water exist as a liquid we can drink on the surface of the planet here. It lets it freeze and rise to the surface, creating icebergs that could sink the Titanic. And it's a gas that floats up in clouds that shield us from the sun. In fact, water is so fundamental to how life on Earth exists, most scientists can't conceive of life without it. And that's why, as astrobiologists, when we go out into space and we go out in the solar system and look for places that could harbor life, we follow the water, because we don't know what life would be like without water. And so I really want you guys to remember that, as you go through your day-to-day. Water doesn't get a lot of the attention it deserves. It's pretty underappreciated. And water might not be as delicious as chocolate, but I argue that it's much more important to our lives and to life in the universe.
That was great. Thank you very much. Very brave to go first. Very fun talk. You said one thing I'm not sure I agree with, that water is more important than caffeine. I'm not sure I can live without caffeine. Be that as it may, it made a lot of sense. Could you say just a minute more, not a lot more, but a minute more about, so you said polarity is the key, but what is it, why is polarity so important?
Polarity is so important because when water is around, it's not just by itself. It's not just one lone molecule, but there are tons of other molecules around it. And that polarity allows it to interact with each other in a very special way. So for example, my positive hands are going to seek out your electronegative oxygen. And your positive hands are going to seek out my electronegative oxygen. Yeah. And that process is called hydrogen bonding. And that's what really gives water its remarkable properties. I didn't want to run to the audience, though, and start high-fiving people's stomachs, because I thought that might be inappropriate.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a question, too. I agree that was an excellent presentation. But my question is something I've always wondered about. And you said like 60% of the human body is water. Are you saying that there's that much liquid, or is there water that's not liquid in the body? I'm always get confused on that.
You know, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I believe it means liquid molecules and not just like H's and OH's that we add together, but it's my understanding because it really is what fills up all our cells, and it's what gives us so much of the structure that we have. And then it's my understanding that it's liquid water that makes up most of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, nicely done.
Thank you.